Loy meets world, and we are back with another one. Corina Veraza is going to be in League of Legends, and that is such exciting news, guys. There's a lot of evidence suggesting to it. Let's get into it. So the first thing that Riot Games gave us was this emblem. What is this emblem? This is a sigil associated to the champion themselves. And if you look at the sigil, well, the most prominent part of it by far is the centerpiece flowing down, which has this golden spiral. And we've seen this golden spiral before. Where have we seen it before? Zaun. Zaun's logo has this exact same spiral going down. There it is in the condensed form. And it also has the syringe at the bottom. There's like a syringe or a needle that tumbles down for Zaun. And we also have that exact same type of design going on in this emblem. So to have such striking similarities to the Zaun icon means that we are getting an important character from Zaun. And the important characters in Zaun are, of course, the Chem Barons. So one of the Chem Barons is going to be the character, and we already know that the most important Chem Baron, the one with a lot of attention around her as of late because of Legends of Runeterra, is Corina Veraza. Another thing that can help us see who this person really is the fact that the centerpiece of the emblem has this kind of root formation that kind of resembles the roots of a tree, or a tree sprouting up and just enveloping everything. It kind of looks like a bunch of vines. And then at the top we've kind of got like the center of a flower, and that center has been surrounded by petals. There's sharp petals. You could argue the only other imagery that this thing really matches is a cloud if you were going for any other image, but I really think they are going for some very strong flower and floral imagery. There are the flowers that Corina uses. We know that she is associated with flowers a lot. They're kind of the dead giveaway that we are dealing with Corina Veraza in anything to do with PNZ, and we'll get to a bunch of other things later that also go along with that motif. And then the emblem also matches the augments on her, so she's wearing these augments and the emblem kind of matches that. So with this amount of evidence, this is enough. What we are going to be doing from this part of the video is we are going to be going very, very deep into Legends of Runeterra, and we are going to be looking at all of the clues suggesting that Corina Veraza is going to be our next champion. There are some clues from when the game released. I'm talking set 1 cards have clues on them. This is very in-depth. Riot Games went crazy, and this is one of the biggest stories I've seen told in a card game ever. I think it's the biggest. I've never seen people do this. Let's move on. This is exciting stuff. Alright, so where does the story start? Well, we've got the used cast salesman, right? So what this guy is doing is he's essentially selling these casts here to the person he's looking at. He tells the person that, you know, the costs, he just made a sale, but he's willing to negotiate for another sale. So the used car salesman, we know this card, you know, he says no refunds when the costs explode. Pretty funny dude. And what I would say is that what's very important for the story we're about to tell is the Caustic cards themselves. This is a card that's kind of like a meme card, and you wonder why it exists in the game. But I think once you're done watching this video, it will represent a bit more. It being a playable card, there will be a lot more meaning to the fact that this is a playable card. Alright, so the first thing about the Caustic cards is that they've got this emblem on them. Now this emblem kind of looks like the Zaun emblem inverted, but it doesn't have the same like floral imagery that Corina's logo has. It could be a condensed form of Corina's logo. That is very, very possible, but we could also be dealing with someone else. Corina would be essentially the person purchasing all of these Caustic casts, and we're going to see why a bit later. But just know that this green fluid inside of them is very important for what's going on in Zaun as a whole, and maybe even Piltover. Okay, speaking about this, we again get the cast salesman, and this time he's being apprehended by the Justice Rider. This is kind of where his story ends. If you read the flavor text for the Justice Rider, it says that she apprehends him, and she also kind of like gives herself a fine or a speeding ticket because she went over the speeding limit, and then she's like, justice works both ways, in the most corny way ever. So yeah, Justice Rider ends up having a high-speed chase. She catches the used cost salesman, and he gets imprisoned for this, probably interrogated as well. Okay, now we have a different part of the story. So the used costs were one part of the story, but this is a warehouse. And how do I know that this is a warehouse? Well, this is the art for the veteran investigator, right? We already know that. He's looking at something below this burnt debris. So how we know this is a warehouse is because we can go outside. Boom! And we're outside at the warehouse. If you want to be 100% sure, you can actually see some shadows here. There's the guy who's pointing and the big patrol warden. The patrol warden is here, and there's the dude who's pointing. And this is the insightful investigator. She's also another card. And the patrol warden, I already mentioned, he's there. And the patrol wardens walk around the building, and they see who's responsible for burning down this warehouse, and it is none other than, you guessed it, Jinx. Jinx being a little bit of a troublemaker. She's not as much of a troublemaker in this universe as she is in Arcane. It's the same universe, but she's not the Arcane Jinx. Arcane Jinx is grim, it's gruesome, dark character. Oh man, I'm skipping past a lot of my points. Whoa, let's go back. Okay, so why is the building on fire? Jinx blew it up, and if you can see in the debris, we get parts of robots. There's some debris from robots being blown up. So there was a shipment made to this warehouse with robots. And how do I know that there was a shipment? Let's move on. If you guys have played Part of Champions, you would have seen there's a fight with Caitlyn. If you play Caitlyn's part in the new Part of Champions in the lab version of Legends of Runeterra, there's a part of Caitlyn's, there's a fight actually that she has with this baboon. She essentially apprehends the baboon. There's the blast after Jinx blows the warehouse up. And the flavor text for the actual battle, before you fight the battle with this baboon, it says your intel has tracked a certain shipment to a seemingly abandoned warehouse. Beyond its rusted doors, you hear a suspiciously gleeful screeching. So the gleeful screeching is Jinx. So Caitlyn had to apprehend this baboon, get rid of the grenades and whatnot, all of the stuff that Jinx attached to it. So that's what this baboon was doing here. It was essentially Jinx's accomplice in this whole crime. Alright, and something else happened that day, somewhere else in the city, also around the warehouse. These Charian sump workers, or this Charian greyback, the one in the center, they actually pick a fight with the Middestokke Henchmen. Now, I don't know why the Charians want anything to do, or why they want to stop the Middestokke Henchmen, but they seem to be fighting for good. These characters are tied with Echo and the Firelights, I'm assuming, so that could be the link there. They're trying to stop the evil in Zaun and clean up the streets. So Caitlyn bumps into these dudes, and since they're acting like vigilantes, they're not enforcers, she says, step aside please, I have no business with you. And this dude says chirp chirp chirp, which is like a slur. Caitlyn ends up saying, well, that sort of language is completely uncalled for. And yeah, they end up apprehending the Middestokke Henchmen. We're gonna see what leads to that. This specific Middestokke Henchman is a guy called Mr. Burrs. We're gonna see that a bit later. So if you read the flavor text for the Middestokke Henchmen, you'll see that it makes reference to this guy in the center, Mr. Burrs. He like raids a vault, and then he's got gold in his hand, etc, etc. And he's got a partner. I feel like his partner is a bit more important to the story. His partner in the back. This is not Mr. Burrs, this guy is. So his partner in the back is a bit more important for the story. His partner in the back has earrings. I want you to keep that in mind. He's got this glimmer, just the slightest glimmer of an earring in the back. Alright, why is this partner important? We need to figure out who these people are working for. So the henchmen are in the story to figure out who they're working for. So this is a scene from when they actually get apprehended outside the warehouse. Not both of them. One of them gets apprehended. It's Mr. Burrs. How we know this is that the flavor text says, "Mind trying on these handcuffs, Mr. Burrs?" And then he asks, "What's in it for me?" And then this dude's like, "You can keep them." And then he's like, "Alright then," in the dumbest way. This enforcer ends up telling him he's under arrest, and then they take him away. So Mr. Burrs is now under arrest. He has his partner with the earring. That's how we know it's his partner. His partner has a rose as well. There's a lot of information to cover. His partner has a rose, and how his partner got taken out is by Jinx. This is also how we know she bombed the warehouse. So he's standing outside of the warehouse. He's guarding the place. And Jinx's flame chompers kind of attack him. What's funny about this card is that all you ever see for flame chompers is you see this part of the card, and you never actually see this Middestokke Henchman or this henchman just being like attacked by a bunch of different flame chompers. But he is, just before the blast, being attacked by all of these people. And this guy works for Corina. How we know he works for Corina is I've circled this rose, this flower. Notice that flower imagery and Corina Veraza are very linked to each other. So that's the first clue we got that this guy actually works for Corina. And then this. So we see this character again. He pops up in the art for the shady character. You would have never thought. So the shady character is two Yordles. They actually are invading a Chem Baron meeting. I don't know what they're doing at the Chem Baron meeting, but they announced that, "Hey guys, we are Chem Barons." And this henchman actually lets them in. You can see him gesturing them in. And this interaction actually happens with Corina Veraza when you play the shady character. Listen to what she says.
"Guards, attend to these fools."
Guards, attend to these fools. Which guard is she talking to? She's talking to this dude right over here. So when the shady character gets played, she's like, "Guards, attend to these fools." She's talking to this guy right here that he must kick them out of whatever Chem Baron meeting they were having. And here's Corina's lair. Again, a lot of flower imagery. Just saying. I don't think I should mention it anymore at this point, but we've really got to let that sink. Corina, flowers. Okay, moving on. Okay, so the last henchman is actually one that pops up in the Bandle City animation that they dropped with the set. And what happens is Caitlyn is actually pursuing this henchman through the city, trying to get information on C. And you'll notice that this henchman, he actually has this green fluid at the back of him. He's got this green fluid, so he's got an augment on him. He's like got augmented body parts on him. This green fluid seems to be very important to the storytelling. It's the same thing we see on Urgot, and if you check a lot of the cards in Zaun, a lot of them have these kinds of green fluids tied to them. I'm not sure if it's a variant of Shimmer or whether it's something else, but just note, it's very important for the story of Legends of Runeterra and where we're going right now. Okay, so she chases him through the city. Just as she's about to get a snipe off, Yordle teleports in using magic from a different dimension. Notice there's the green fluid again, and there's that logo, that like Zaunish logo inverted that kind of looks like Corina's logo. And yeah, that's the most important part for this cinematic. We can move on, but just notice they've even done it in different mediums to tell the story. So Caitlyn pursues this person and she essentially gets a lead. So this is one of the first leads. She sees that the casks are important. Knowing that the casks are important, the veteran investigator goes out. He had seen something underneath the debris. If you look at his card, he opens up debris, flaming debris, and he sees something underneath the debris. And he seems to be seeing the same thing again. What this is it's this green fluid. And this card's name is actually Trail of Evidence. So we know that this is very important. This green fluid is very important to what's going on. It's what is being smuggled amongst robotic parts, I theorize. So the green fluid and so on is very important. And we can see that it has a tie with Chemtech. To power Chemtech machines, you need this green fluid. And it's what Corina seems to be moving around. They don't know it's Corina right now. Who they think it is right now is C. So they are looking for someone called C. That is what the veteran investigator seems to be discovering here, is that they find a person called C. The veteran investigator, his strong point is paperwork. If you read his flavor text, he is very strong at paperwork. So that's important because he's the one who gives this report and this evidence. He gives it to who? The station archivers. And who are the station archivers? Well, we've got one station archiver in red. She's the main card. She is the astute academic in grown-up form. And then we've got another station archiver, and she hands the evidence over from the veteran investigator to the astute academic. And wouldn't you guess it, this is Corina. And everything just comes together. So Corina has this flower in her hair, and she essentially gives all of this misinformation about C to the astute academic, who is going to be relaying all of this information to Caitlyn. Fun fact, this cat is actually Professor Von Yip, but we'll move on from that. Oh yeah, and this card, this information card that draws you 2 cards, it also has Corina's hands in it, also just laying that evidence down, or at least tampering with it, doing something with the evidence. Alright, another character who's collecting evidence is the sting officer. His name is actually Zaun Asako. So Zaun found a factory with all of these caustic casts, and he found 2 characters running on a bridge. Zaun actually lost his brother, but that's not important. He lost his brother to gang crime, but I just thought I'd mention it. Not very important to this story, but kind of important. He tailed these 2 guys, and he tailed them from the barkeep. So he followed these guys from the back alley barkeep, and the barkeep is also serving up this green fluid that seems to be very important for people with augments and chemtech technology ingrained in them. So he serves them up. This also implicates the barkeep, means he's got some sort of illegal dealings. The sting officer, wouldn't be here if there wasn't anything illegal going on. So he's hot on the trail of Corina and whatever she's been doing with the casks. Alright, so with all of this evidence collected, all of the evidence goes now to Caitlyn. Caitlyn collects all of the evidence that she was given by the station archiver, and Corina's tampering as well. So she's looking for essentially a villain called C, and they found out that she's female. You can kind of see here that this character is put as female, and we can see that this character has also been linked to flowers, which is very ironic because you can see Corina just wearing the flower in her hair, just looking at Caitlyn like, bruh, I'm right here and you're talking all of this smack about me. And then we see all of the other investigators here in this meeting as well. We've got Zaun, who's the sting operator. We've got some of the other wardens or enforcers. We've got the investigator, the insightful investigator. We've got a patrol warden, and then the astute academic. Alright, so after this meeting, Caitlyn meets up with her subordinate, who happens to be called Tremello. She tells Tremello that they've got a lead on the case, and she kind of figures out where they've intercepted another shipment. The interception is actually that interception you saw with the Justice Rider. That is the interception that Caitlyn is talking about right now. And she figures out where that thing is coming from, essentially, where the caustic casts are coming from. And now Tremello asks her, what if it's a trap? And she says she doesn't really care at this point. It's the one shot they've got, and she's not going to miss. So they set up a sting operation there. They get all of the wardens to go in. They were also discussing this in the meeting as well, that they're going to raid this place. The wardens break through the barrier. This will be important a bit later, but I'll just tell you what it is. It's a Middestokke Henchman hitting one of the dudes with a hammer. And they essentially break into this warehouse with all of the caustic casts where they've been getting. You can kind of see the glow from the caustic casts and also glow from the flowers. The flowers have kind of absorbed some of the liquids from the caustic casts. I suspect that's why they glow green. And none other than Corina Veraza, or Corina Mastermind, in the corner with her robotic augment on. Now, I'm not sure whether this augment can come on or off. They do say that she damaged her arm, but I'll get to why I feel like it might be able to come off a bit later. Anyway, she has the trigger in her hand and she's ready to get Caitlyn. Well, she's ready to destroy Caitlyn. I ran out of words there, but basically she set up this whole trap to lure Caitlyn in and all of these wardens here. That's why she was in the office doing all that meddling. Alright, so now let's just look at her level up animation, because her level up animation, Caitlyn's level up animation, actually has the part where they break into Corina's lair. I just thought it would be pretty cool to show you guys.
Is excellent.
Alright, and that's the part where they actually break in just before she sees Corina. She goes in, guns blazing, firing off. Okay, and then we have Corina Veraza, of course, like, ha ha ha, this was my master plan. I set this whole thing up. And she essentially triggers that trap that she set up, and all of the flowers emit this toxic fume. And you can see one of the enforcers choking on it, trying to get one of those masks on. And they've got a battle on their hands right now. They've got to destroy Corina Veraza. One of them gets hit with a hammer by the Middestokke Henchmen. This is the artful coup de grace. Okay, so then in the aftermath of this, Jinx pops up. Not in the aftermath, during this, Jinx pops up. And Jinx figures out that Caitlyn wasn't pursuing her this whole time. There's a part of champions at the warehouse where she thinks she's being pursued by Caitlyn, but Caitlyn's actually there for Corina, or C as she's still called at this time. And Jinx essentially kidnaps Tremello, and at this point in the story, in the part of champions minigame, you actually have to make a choice whether you're going to save Tremello or pursue C. Pursuing C would be the correct choice, but I think Caitlyn in the real thing actually saves Tremello, and this is what happens when you save Tremello. Corina gives up with a smile on her face. She's like, I give up, Sheriff. And then Caitlyn's like, I trusted you, Corina. I thought you were a person of good standing. And then Corina's like, yes, you did, and you served me very well. Basically, what she means by you served me very well, it's a double meaning. It means that Corina was using Caitlyn to take out a lot of her other enemies in Piltover and Zaun. All of the other Chem Barons and stuff, she was leading her towards them. And then when she was ready, she now got caught herself. And why she was ready to get caught is that she's planted some people. So we can see in this scene here, but my dear, you forgot one thing. To kill the flower, you must pull out all of its roots. She's planted this person and Tremello in the police establishment itself. So Corina will be seen again. This is how we know she's going to be coming back, because she's got people who have infiltrated there. She's planted some seeds in the police force. So Corina's got her plants. How we know Tremello is a plant is if you choose to pursue C instead of save Tremello in the minigame, you end up getting this interaction where Tremello flips on you, he points a gun at you, and then Caitlyn's not surprised by any of this. She says you're a little late as usual, and she's like, I figured Corina would have some backup, I've got some backup too. And she lets Vi out on this boy. Vi probably smashes his head in, and then we move on. So that's essentially the big story about Corina Veraza, is that she's essentially been caught by Caitlyn, and she's planted some people within the organization who are going to get her out. And how she's going to get out? She's going to be a champion in League of Legends pretty soon. She's going to be on the Rift. Alright, here are some other clues as well that Riot Games has left behind, some extra clues. So in Arcane, if you check out the Chem Barons scene, you'll see there's this window with the syringe for Zaun coming down. So that's the main emblem they use, the logo. Sorry, I just want to pause this. And then below it, there's all of these flowers. Now, this doesn't mean that Corina was a Chem Baron at this time, or that it's saying that she exists in this universe at the time, but it's a reference, it's a clue. It's like saying, hey guys, just by the way, Corina Veraza is coming. We're just going to put some flowers here, just for narrative importance. Then there's another scene where Jace walks in on Caitlyn, and he actually gives her flowers. But she doesn't have time for it because she's trying to crack a case, and she throws the flowers on the floor. She doesn't want the flowers. There's tension between her and floral imagery. All of the flowers are being ignored, but they're right there in the room, right under her nose, right next to her, while she's trying to solve a case. This is narrative foreshadowing on another level, and Arcane is so good at that. If you watched my previous video, you would have seen that. Alright, so there's the still of the flowers on the floor. I'm gonna move on from that. There's this painting as well, which was in the promo material for Arcane. And this painting looks like a firelight painting. So maybe there's a little bit of a backstory for Corina as well. This kind of looks like her as well in a funny, weird way. She's got brown hair as well. And then the main giveaway is this flower in her hair. This flower in her hair is the main thing that makes me suspect that this could be Corina Veraza. Someone painted her, and they just hinting at her coming back. So maybe she was a firelight, or she was tied with the firelight, and then she had a falling out, she died, fake died or something, and they painted her on a wall to honor her, but she actually comes back as a villain. And alright, here's one of the enemies. Corina Veraza was leading Caitlyn around to take out her own enemies. In the Warrior Cinematic 2020, you can actually see one of the enemies of Corina Veraza, who she led Caitlyn to. This is also part of the story. She led Caitlyn to Urgot. So this is why Vi and Caitlyn end up fighting Urgot. They were led here by Corina Veraza leaking information about him. And notice, if you look at Urgot, the green fluid is more prevalent in his character design than a lot of the other character designs. It has a lot to do with characters with these chemtech augmentations. And that is the whole story. There's a lot of other clues that they've left behind, but essentially this is the big story on how Corina Veraza is going to come into the game. Riot Games would not have left so many narrative clues around. I mean, there must be 30 cards. There must be a good 30 cards, plus the Path of Champion story with ties to Corina Veraza. You don't just do that for a card you're not going to drop. And that is why she's almost like without a doubt going to be that support champion. Now I also have a great theory about who the first champion we're going to get is, the Ride by Lightning machine gun guy. I will cover that person tomorrow. Guys, if you made it this far, thank you so much for tuning in.